What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns back with you after Wild Card Weekend, recording on a Monday morning. Still one more game to go. Rams and Vikings tonight from Arizona. Some things happened over the weekend, Johnsy. One big candidate off the board.
Who? Mike Vrabel?
Yeah.
Where did he go?
He went to a place called New England where he won Super Bowls as a player.
But why? Okay. Oh, yeah. 3 Super Bowls, I believe. All-pro outside linebacker, Mike Vrabel.
Yeah. Not surprising, but we do need to talk about it and how that all went down and how much the Bears were actually involved. There's a college coach that appears to be in the mix, as we've discussed before. And the interim head coach is interviewing today. So plenty to get to. We're also going to be joined by Mark Potash, who, is pretty much the greatest. Well, he's the Illinois sports writer.
Yeah, I was going to say, Illinois Sports Writer of the Year, Mark Potash.
He dethroned Fishman.
He did.
It's messed up. Should we have them both come on and fight it out?
With words? With verbiage?
Well, I think they should have to write it out, actually.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right off. Good old-fashioned right off.
Yeah. And a little show news at the end of today's pod, too, that we need to share with you guys as well. All right. Mike Vrabel goes to the New England Patriots without ever stepping foot inside Hallis Hall. Problem or not a problem?
That he didn't step foot inside Hallis Hall?
Well, yeah, but yeah. I guess the real question is, how seriously did the Bears take Mike Vrabel, who by all accounts seemed to be the one candidate that brought both experience and, I don't know, a lot of the qualities the Bears seemingly needed in that locker room.
I was saying, and probably a plan for Caleb Williams, because he's had good offensive coordinators work for him in Tennessee.
Yeah.
They should have taken him seriously, to answer your question there. I think they did take him seriously. Our friend Diana Rossini said there was a late push by the Bears. My understanding is that just was them hoping to keep this door open and not have it slam shut on their face so soon. As you said, they didn't even have him in the building. So as well as that 3-hour Zoom interview probably went with the Bears, you might have wanted to host the best candidate available, maybe arguably the best candidate available, inside your building for an hour or two, too.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's the idea in your head that you're taking him seriously, and then there's what's actually going on around you. And the reality is like, that contract with the Browns ended in week 18 for a reason. It wasn't an accident. And the Jets took advantage. I mean, the Jets, you can at least say, made a full-blown effort to try to get a guy that probably wasn't going to go there. But they tried. They got him in the building before the season was even over that Friday. And you could tell that they were really pushing for it. The Bears, I mean, you could argue that they should have also had him in the building before they even played the Packers a couple weeks ago. And if not, he should have been in there last week. Trying to keep an open dialogue with a guy is not when everybody in the world realizes what's happening. The second Gerard Mayo was fired, they go and they're going to face scrutiny for it, and there might even be some type of investigation. But they knocked out their Rooney Rule requirements really fast. And reportedly, Aaron Glenn refused to interview with them because of what they were doing.
Well, I think this just gets to the point where everybody in the league knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So if you're the Bears, if you're the Jets, you probably have to go over the top more than once to make this work for Mike Vrabel. Become even more appealing than what you think you are. than what you presented in the 3-hour Zoom in the Bears case. And I don't know if the Bears had that in them, or if they were ready to even go down that road.
I guess that's my problem. Is like you're holding press conferences saying this is the most important hire. The president saying this is going to impact the organization for like did he say decades to come? Was that the exact quote? I think. But clearly, to me, the two strongest candidates off the start, things can change, are Vrabel and Ben Johnson. Now, they're doing what they can with Ben Johnson. There's roadblocks there. There's rules. I get that. But you had this other candidate who was available now. And this thing ended with him going to New England without the Bears doing, in my opinion, what they should have done to really go all in. Or even like, even give yourself a chance to rule him out if you decide he's not the guy.
Yeah. In-person interviews are different than Zoom interviews. We all know that. We've done so many over the past 3 or 4 years that we know how people change within certain interviews. Things are presented differently. Body language is different. So many different interactions when you have that person actually in your building, good or bad. So, yeah, the Bears probably didn't really have the greatest of shots at this. Part of that is, well, look what's happening. He's getting his own GM in a sense, in Ryan Cowden, who's coming from the New York Giants, right? And he's at the Giants now.
He was a personnel guy with the Giants, and he was, for a little backstory on that, he's the guy that Vrabel wanted them to hire when they fired John Robinson. He wanted Cowden promoted. Instead, they went out. Ownership went and got Rand Carthon. That created some of the friction that eventually led to Vrabel being let go. And Cowden went on to the Giants for a year. And not surprisingly, now that's an actual. I mean that I don't know. Maybe that was a deal breaker.
That's probably a hurdle the Bears themselves couldn't get over because of the structure they currently have in place with Chairman George McCaskey, Team President Kevin Warren, and GM Ryan Poles. I don't think they were going to go down the road to allow Mike Vrabel to bring in his own personnel man. So probably for Vrabel's end, another deal breaker. This is a different conversation, and I think it extends to the Ben Johnson conversation because you have Tom Brady and a completely blank slate for Ben Johnson. Like, what does Ben Johnson really want? Does he want the quarterback who's already in place? Or does he want seemingly a blank slate, fresh start, whatever you want to call it, with Tom Brady at his side to help him through this?
Yeah. I hope I'm making my point clear, though. Like, to me, it seems like the Bears are putting up their own roadblocks. Because, like, if that really is a deal breaker, anyone could seriously argue that it shouldn't be. That if you're
structure, what they have in place,
you got a GM on a 1-year deal right now. Maybe you should be open-minded to bring in the best head coaching candidate who wants to bring his own personnel guy. If you're resisting to that, then you're not doing what you told your fans you're doing. You're just not. And then the process here where we're trying to create an equal playing field over Zoom is ridiculous to me. It's not an equal playing field. Mike Vrabel has earned the respect from what he's already done in the league, both as a player and a head coach, and even a position coach and a coordinator, to not be treated the same way as Drew Petzing. I'm sorry.
Pete Carroll probably deserves the same.
Why is Pete Carroll not in the building? Doesn't make sense to me.
Hall of Fame coach, future Hall of Fame coach, Super Bowl winner, college national champion, has won in multiple stops. He is twice the age of Drew Petzing. We're throwing Drew Petzing under the bus here a little bit, but like Pete Carroll's old enough to be his father. I'm not lying about that. Look it up. Pete Carroll's 73. Drew Petzing is 37.
Yeah, that adds up. And this might be a good spot to bring this Thomas Brown in the conversation. Do you want to do that here?
Let's do it.
So he's reportedly interviewing today with the Bears. He's the Bears interim head coach. He finished the year as the head coach. He just beat the Green Bay Packers a week ago. Is he interviewing virtually or is he interviewing in person where he has an office?
My understanding, it's virtually. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
I don't know. Okay. This organization just they want us to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they just don't earn it. Why are you interviewing your own interim head coach virtually? Now, I'm sure he went back to Charlotte. I'm sure he's with his family. The guy was just in your building all year. You can't get him back. Have an in-person conversation with the people he's been working with all year. That's just
who probably has more information on your team than even a 3-hour interview can handle.
It just blows my mind.
Who has worked closely with your quarterback for weeks, for months, who has gone from playing scout team nickelback to your play caller in the booth to your head coach on the sideline, who was on the record answering your question that he would run a different offense for Caleb Williams. Like, that in itself is worth a 3-hour conversation. Probably not with George McCaskey and Kevin Warren, or Liz Geist or Ted Cruz, but with Ryan Poles and Jeff King.
Yeah. I don't know. Am I making? I am discouraged by the Bears process so far.
I don't mind the idea of trying to maintain like some, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to use continuity, but like some consistency with how this is running. But I don't know. Maybe it's just some level of frustration because Mike Vrabel, who was just hired and who's literally being introduced as we record this right now, like wasn't brought in the building. And I think that's a significant factor in just being appealing to teams. Or sorry, being appealing to candidates, making yourself appealing to these candidates. But yeah, and like I rolled my eyes at the Marcus Freeman report. We joked about it in the last podcast. You know, like wins the huge semifinal game, manages the clock brilliantly at the end, game-winning field goal, team fully supporting him. Like, of course you want to interview him, but like your interview request comes out. It's not even a request, I guess. They want to interview him. I'm not surprised if he wouldn't take it, but I don't know. How did you react to the Marcus Freeman report?
Well, that's a little different for me because I said back in November that there was some interest there.
Yeah.
So I think that's been pretty consistent. I just think that, I don't know if there was any back channel conversations that led to that contract extension he already got.
He signed through 2030.
Yeah, those college contracts are weird though. There's always outs. I mean, we already saw Bill Belichick's contract. If he wants to go coach,
Notre Dame wants him to get out though. I don't think he wants out.
No, I'm not sure he does either. And I if I had to guess, the biggest reason why he won't end up the Bears head coach is because I don't think he's necessarily interested in leaving.
I don't think he wants the job.
But the point is that you can get out of those if you want to. But yeah, the fact that it kind of got rekindled. Like, does it get rekindled if they lose that game? The other thing with these college interviews you got to be careful of. I know the Bears are announcing all the interviews, but like, are they?
You think there's like some secret college candidates? Give me a couple of secret college candidates.
Well, I'm one might have already gotten out, like Matt Campbell, that got reported. Now some coaches want their name out there because it helps create a little buzz, maybe creates a contract extension for themselves, a little pay bump, and others are in a situation where their fan base is going to riot if they hear that they might be leaving, and so they don't want it out.
My favorite semi-annual rumor that came out all the time about the Bears was how Pat Fitzgerald was interested in coaching the Bears.
Yeah.
And all that turned into was another 2 years for him at another 2-year contract extension for him at Northwestern.
Yeah. Well, I think there was some poking around there at times. How serious it ever got. I don't really think it did. Now he did have some serious opportunities, including once with the Packers, but
the Fitz stuff came out every year around the same time from the same reporter.
Yeah, it's a good job. Well, and that's the point. Like, you just got the college, the college bucket of head coaching candidates it's just different.
Yeah,
it's.
And let me clarify. I'm not rolling my eyes at the report of Marcus Freeman in the Bears' interest. I think I'm rolling my eyes at, like, okay, let's add a 16th or 17th name to this. I get that the Bears have time, but at some point, I think you hear it in some of the national reports already. The idea that the Bears interviewing this many candidates is laughable too strong of a way to describe it.
Maybe.
How would you describe it?
Unnecessary. Maybe. I don't. Of all the things going on here, I put that like at the bottom of the list. I have a problem with. I don't mind you getting intel, networking with. Some of these guys might end up being offensive coordinator candidates. Some of them might end up being head coaching candidates 3 years from now when you fire the next guy. Maybe they're
Ryan
already
Poles, Ian Cunningham, Jeff King are all fired.
Maybe they're already doing their 2028 head coaching interviews right now. Maybe that's it. Yeah, I get why it's perceived that way. I don't necessarily have a huge problem with that part of it. I have more of a problem with them trying to pretend this is an equal playing field. If you were taking this seriously, you would have gone all in on Mike Vrabel. And doing a Zoom interview and a couple phone calls to pretend that the Patriots aren't hiring him in 2 seconds, it's just not. It's not it. It's not it. It's just not it. And I unless Thomas Brown insisted on doing his virtually, I just find that so ridiculous that you can't bring in the guy who just beat the Packers a week ago and where he had an office. I don't even know if that office has been cleaned out yet. It's just crazy.
I don't think it can because he's under contract with the team. Like, my understanding is every single coach still. I mean, I'm sure they've cleaned some stuff out, but they're all still under contract. No coaches have been allowed to leave yet. Usually, given our experiences covering this, the team allows, well, like, the next head coach to decide what to do with the current group of assistants, whether or not to retain them.
Yeah. While also giving them opportunities to interview if they're sort of in limbo. Like you supposedly will or did, or I don't even know the status of that with the Seahawks and the OC job. So, all right. Well, should we bring Potsy in?
Let's do it.
All right. We always love having him on the show. Mark Potash, Illinois Sports Writer of the Year, joins us now.
Congratulations, Mark.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We were wondering though, like, I mean, is there friction between you and Kevin Fishbane now because you dethroned him with this award, or do you guys have to battle it out or something?
No, I give Kevin a lot of credit. His victory inspired me to be better.
Was it Matt?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of kidding. I really like Kevin, and I'm proud of him winning last year, because he kind of does what I do, but he takes it to another level. So I kind of like that. It's kind of like the next generation. So I actually take a little pride in Kevin winning last year. I thought it was great.
No, we have a lot of respect for both of you guys. We need Matt Eberflus to come back though and shout you out now for being Illinois Sports Writer of the Year the way he did with
No, I don't need any. I appreciate the recognition, the attention, not so much.
Yeah,
that's just my style.
Johnsy, where do you want to start here?
Let's start with Ron Rivera. You were very familiar with well, with his career, his playing career,
Yeah.
his coaching career. He interviews with the Bears. What do you make of Ron Rivera's candidacy?
Well, was it on site? I guess I don't know that.
I think there were some rumors that it was. Yes.
If it was on site, then it's a kind of a Rooney Rule situation, right? Just compliance, right? I mean, that's at least that's the effect. Which is kind of weird because they could have brought Vrabel and Pete Carroll in person and didn't. So if they did it, that's pretty obvious. Actually, if that is, I think it's a good sign that the Bears are kind of willing, even though people don't like the whole people getting teams getting around the Rooney Rule, or just paying lip service to it. It's actually a good sign for the Bears that they're willing to play that game, because they're going to need to play that game if they really like Ben Johnson, because you can't wait till the second interview with a guy who might be in the Super Bowl to firm up that deal. That's got to be done with back channel negotiations and things that the Bears really aren't used to doing. And if they're doing this with Ron Rivera, whoever else they bring in to comply with the Rooney Rule, I think that shows an indication that maybe that they're willing to at least play ball a little differently under Kevin Warren than they did previously and get this thing done. Because if Ben Johnson's their guy, I always go back to the Kyle Shanahan thing when he was in the Super Bowl with the Falcons. He interviewed on like January 6th. And by January 16th, it was pretty much a done deal, even though he couldn't sign because they had done all the work even before his second interview. And that was not at their facility. That was in Atlanta. So that's the kind of game you got to play. So I guess that's my take on the whole Ron Rivera interview, if it was on site, in that it's a difference from what they're, like you guys were talking about, trying to even the playing field by having everybody virtual. But as far as his candidacy itself, I think it's like they can do better, frankly. I mean, Pete Carroll's a better of coaches who have won in the league. Pete Carroll's a better option, and so so I guess I'm not dismissing Ron Rivera. He's an ex-Bear. He's accomplished in the league, but he's also failed in the league too. And I keep going back. This is kind of one of those flippant things I say that I'm kind of joking, but kind of not. You know, which version of Ron Rivera do you think is going to be at Hallis Hall when he's working for the McCaskies? The one at Carolina or the one in Washington? It's the same thing with almost anybody who has that kind of dual is defined by success and failure.
And Ron's former team just won a big playoff game on the road in Tampa last night too, with a young quarterback.
Right, with the coach who the Bears didn't want. Right.
Yeah, two of them.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury.
Right. Well, right. But, Dan Quinn was, one of the guys that Ryan Poles actually talked to, right? That was one of his three interviews, and said no. And looking back, even then, that was kind of surprising. Back then, it was like, wow, he must really have an intuition about coaches to know that this guy is better than a guy who's already, been to a Super Bowl and stuff like that. So as it turned out, no. And that's why I'm, not really all that optimistic about the process here, except that they at least they're shooting high. They're getting all the candidates that everybody else wants, which is kind of progress for the Bears.
Yeah. We were just talking about that, how the process is been underwhelming so far, to say the least. So, I mean, do you have any overall thoughts on who they've interviewed or anyone stand out to you so far that you like that they're talking to? Maybe I'll narrow the question down to this. Do you have a problem with how many candidates that they're interviewing or how they're going about it?
Only if it keeps them from getting the right guy. I think the idea that this expansive search, I've said it before, it's not a new thought. I think Adam used the word unnecessary. I don't know about unnecessary, but just superfluous. It's extra. I can't think of the word, but the issue with that, my problem with that is that when they say we're going to leave no stone unturned, and that always sounds good. It makes it like you're doing your due diligence, but the reason the Bears have missed on their coaches isn't because, they didn't look hard enough. I mean, Bruce Arians was right in their face. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they had an opportunity to get guys. It's not because they haven't looked hard enough. It's just because they haven't made good decisions. So the idea that this is an expansive search and No, casting a wide net. Is that? I think that was the phrasing. That just doesn't impress me. I mean, that doesn't give me any more confidence that they're going to get it right. And in fact, you could argue that it might lead them to getting it more wrong, because while they're doing all these interviews and stuff like that, people are going to start hiring people, and you've got one key guy already hired in Vrabel, and maybe that was a done deal. Maybe they had no shot there, but certainly Ben Johnson, if you think he's the guy, that's something you got to pounce on, and you can't be interviewing. You can't be interviewing guys, like it's like in what was it, 2013. I think the Bears were interviewing Joe DeCamillis the day the Chiefs were announcing Andy Reid. So, and had 9 more interviews to go in that process, 9 more first round interviews to go in that process. So that's how long the Bears have been in this kind of funk as far as trying to hire people.
But Potsy, that's a great comparison, because I mean, that's essentially what just happened with Mike Vrabel, right? Like the Andy Reid, I think John's brought this up a couple weeks ago or last week, that he was on the market for 4 days after he parted ways with the Eagles, and the Chiefs just jumped on it. And by the way, when I ran Vrabel through this model I've been using, the most similar score to him was Andy Reid when he got hired by the Chiefs in terms of checking all the boxes. Yeah. It's like almost the same situation.
Yeah, and obviously he doesn't have Reid's track record, but he's still successful. But the point is, like when Clark Hunt, who's the owner, chairman, he's the second generation guy in that organization. When he took over that process in 2013, they had planned a thorough search. They had all their options open. They wanted a thorough search, and they interviewed like Keith Armstrong, the former Bears special teams coordinator, and Dirk Cutter, I think. I can't remember. But then they interviewed Andy Reid, and it was over. No more. Andy Reid, a day later, Andy Reid cancels his interview with the Cardinals, and this thing is a done deal. And so they pounced. They took advantage of it. And that's kind of, if the Bears feel they have their guy, you can't really compare a hot coordinator to a proven coach like Andy Reid. But if the Bears feel like they got their guy, then you got to strike pretty quickly. And we'll see if they do that. So I guess I can't remember what the question was, but my point would be that the expansive search is fine as long as it doesn't keep you from getting the right guy. And with the Bears, there's always that doubt, that chance.
Yeah, well, the last expansive search would be their offensive coordinator search, right? Which they considered casting a wide net.
Yeah.
And Ryan Poles was a part of that, and it ended in Shane Waldron. So maybe they're looking underneath the wrong stones, right? Maybe that's part of the problem.
That's actually kind of leads to another issue. Shane Waldron was actually passable when he was hired by Pete Carroll, right? I mean, he wasn't fired when he left. In fact, I think they were thinking he might stay on before the Bears took him. So my point is, he was a passable offensive coordinator until he came to Chicago, and then he was fired in 9 games. And so that's the issue. There is, does somebody become the worst version of themselves just when they step in the building? And I think that's a fair concern with anybody, especially the guys who have not yet been coaches, head coaches in the league, like a Ben Johnson or a Joe Brady. And I think you got to take that into consideration and wonder what's in the water there.
What do you make of the Bears' interest? Well, Marcus Freeman, David Shaw, Matt Campbell, like college coaches. Was it Nick Saban who was on the Bears' radar years ago? The year of
when they hired Lovey. Yeah. And I think he wanted too much roster control, I think, at the time, which is interesting because Jerry Angelo had the right to say no. He had the right to, he's building his team or whatever. But Ryan Poles doesn't have that. And I know that's another question, another subject, but the Bears are much more ripe for a guy to want roster control or more authority as far as personnel authority. But that's a whole nother subject. What I make of those is that they're just doing their due diligence. What they think is their due diligence and looking on, that's looking under every stone and seeing what's there. But again, I hate to be so kind of negative, but their history says that, I don't know if they have like the insight to know what really makes a good head coach or a good coach based on what they've done before. So that's why I said, I think I wrote this a couple of days ago. I can't remember. I've done all sorts of stuff, but I mean, they need to swing big here and at least take a shot at all the guys who everybody else wants, because it's like when you got a good handicapper at the racetrack, you don't do your own handicapping. You look and see what that guy's doing, and who does he like. And so I think the Bears are better off. And I'm, again, another one of those kind of things that was kind of a flippant thing a year or two ago or a few years ago. Now I'm actually serious. They should just go after the guy everybody else likes, because that's their best intuition, their best insight into coaches.
I like that you brought this. I like that you brought this up, because you made fun of me on Twitter yesterday a little bit, because I said if Tom Brady likes Ben Johnson, I think it's okay if the Bears fall in love a little bit with Ben Johnson too. So to your point in what you're saying, if Tom Brady wants Ben Johnson, then it's okay if the Bears go all out and make their final pursuit for Ben Johnson. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm not sure if I trust the guy, how much Brady. Brady, to me, he's a guy who obviously, one of the best, if not the best quarterback of all time, and certainly, seems to have that right, that kind of intuition about the game, and just knows the game so well. You'd think he'd be you think he would be, but he doesn't really have a track record. But I agree with the point. But that is my point. I think we're making the same point, that the Bears should just go after everybody else, all the other hot guys. And so far, it looks like they are. Sometimes the cycles are bad. I mean, sometimes the cycles aren't good, and it really isn't a right answer. If you look back, I keep a chart of all the hires every year by year, and sometimes there just isn't an option, and it just is kind of but timing is everything. It's like, I hope we have time, but I'm not taking up too much of your time. But like when the Chiefs, in 2012, the Chiefs had an interim coach in Romeo Crennel, and he won like 2 or 3 games, and he beat the Ravens or somebody, and they kept him on. It would be like the Bears if Thomas Brown had done well, they'd keep it. And so they kept. So I think Scott Pioli was the GM at the time, and he kept Romeo Crennel, and it was a disaster. Not a disaster. It didn't work. They fired him after 1 year, and then Pioli himself got fired. But it put them into the right cycle, because it put them into the next cycle where they had Andy Reid available. So timing is everything. So sometimes it could turn out that there is no right answer, because sometimes there's just not a good prospect. But here, I think this is going to. Adam, you can address this probably, well, I know much better than I can, but I think this will turn out to be a good cycle of coaches. I think there's good candidates, and I think it's good that the Bears are looking at the best ones. It's like going back to the Shanahan thing. The 49ers that year, and I think it was Jed York, their CEO or their owner, overlooking that one, which is interesting. But they had like 8 candidates, and like 6 of them got head coaching jobs that year, including, I think, McDermott and McVay, who are still going. So they were looking at all the hot guys, and they hit on the right one of them. So I think so for the Bears, I think it's a good sign that they're at least getting all the best. Because sometimes, and I haven't really looked this up, but I'm pretty sure on memory that they don't always do that. Like the Andy Reid thing, they don't always go after the hot guy, or if they have a chance, they don't hire him, like with the Arians thing.
Well, I do agree that this is a stronger cycle. To your point with the whole Romeo Crennel thing, though, it's like, well, so the Bears comp on that would be they kind of screwed up last year by not moving on for Matt Eberflus fast enough, so they kept him. Well, maybe that accidentally put him in the right cycle.
Yeah, right. That could be
right.
There was something out there that
my fear though is the Andy Reid just got hired by the Patriots, right? So now you got to find the Bruce Arians. And the question and the question is, do you trust the Bears to hire the Bruce Arians this time instead of the Canadian Football League coach of the year or whatever?
Well, until they do it, I don't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. But I mean, yeah, but the Bears could be in the same thing, although they could have taken at least a shot at Harbaugh and didn't do it. So that might turn out to be that looks like that's going to be a pretty good hire, but we'll see. But anyway, we'll see. It's time. I guess my point was a lot of times it's timing, and the Bears just haven't had really good timing or intuition or anything. So I'm interested to see how this plays out more than I usually am, to tell you the truth, because they are looking at some big names, and they're looking at the best guys, whether they end up turning, who knows in 2 or 3 years how this will turn out. I mean, everybody wanted Brian Daboll at this time, 3 years ago, or I think it was 3 years ago. And that's not, that certainly didn't pan out. You just never know. I mean, some guys know, I guess, but I don't.
The interesting about all these Chiefs examples, you know who was there for all of it?
Yeah, Ryan Poles.
Ryan Poles.
Yes.
He experienced, going from GM to GM, and then Andy Reid comes in and completely changes that organization to what you have now.
I think Patrick Mahomes changed that organization. Andy Reid was just another guy who couldn't get to the top. He was a good coach, and I think everything changed when Patrick. I think Patrick Mahomes is making. If you look at these guys, all these guys from Kansas City, now there aren't that many, I guess, but Nagy and a couple others, except for I think Doug Peterson, who might have predated Mahomes. That kind of, I guess what I'm saying is I think Mahomes can skew the whole tree, the coaching tree, organizational tree thing, and make it look like guys are more responsible for success than they were. And right now, sorry, with all due respect to Ryan Poles, that's what that looks like. So, no, but you're right, he was there.
I agree with you, Potsy, but I think that it's a two-way street when it comes to the head coach quarterback thing, right? And that's why the Brady Belichick thing can rage on forever, but the reality is that they needed each other, in my opinion. And I think right now, I think what you got to do is you got to hire a high enough qualified coach that then the quarterback can take it to the top. But if you don't get the high enough qualified coach, then you have that dragging everything else down. And that's where the Bears have been in this tug of war. They haven't done either is the problem. Right. But they might have the quarterback now, but they got to at least get a high enough level head coach to figure that out, or it's never going to happen. And I think even in the context of Mike Tomlin, the conversation over the weekend with them losing, I kind of find the whole thing laughable. The timeline for them starting to lose playoff games was directly tied to when Ben Roethlisberger started sucking.
Absolutely. Yes.
He started getting bad, and then they never replaced him. That's when they started losing. But that doesn't mean Mike Tomlin sucks. It just means that they need to get him another good quarterback to elevate his good coaching back to Super Bowl level.
I agree. And that's why I think I'm not sure if this is where you're going with that, but I think it really is key to the whole Bears thing because, and again, another thing I kind of addressed late last week was the whole Caleb Williams thing, and I'm not sold on him. I'm not sold on him. I think my point was he needs they better get a good match. That was my thing. That's my point. They better get a good match with he's not gonna make a coordinator or coach out of any coordinator or coach. He needs that right kind of point guard head coach basketball thing, that mentally tethered thing where you're just online, you're totally on board with he needs one of those good marriages Caleb does to really reach his peak. I'm not sold, and certainly Jaden Daniels kind of ratcheted up that debate again yesterday as far as who now. Before, everyone was thinking, Jaden Daniels, and I'm generalizing here, Adam. You can correct me, but it's Jaden Daniels having his day now, but Caleb Williams will slingshot past him eventually, right? I'll be honest, I'm not so sure that's true, especially even before yesterday. I'm not so sure that that's the case, and I'm not saying he'll still be better than Trubisky or Fields ever were, not ever were, but were overall. But will he be that elite difference-making quarterback? I'd say you better get the right coach for him before you can start thinking like that.
Yeah, and just to tie that to the coaching thing, I guess what I'm confused about is now they're doing all this due diligence and on every single candidate in the world. And it's well, you didn't do that with the quarterbacks last year because you didn't bring Jaden Daniels in. You didn't bring Bo Nix in. So I don't know. Is this a reaction to that? Are they overcompensating, questioning that process? I don't know, but it just seems like whatever they do is the wrong thing. I don't know.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head. This will be a great test because they've got this quarterback who is a number one overall pick that was the consensus number one overall pick. There weren't too many people. I don't think, again, you guys know more about it than I do, but He was pretty much considered the number one guy and a generational guy in the, I know it's a cliche, but in the sense that he's the best of this group or this particular, this 2 or 3 year group, whatever. And who knows, but he was considered that. So they've got that at least. I mean, they're not putting it's not Rex Grossman. And so they've got that, and now they've got an opportunity to get the coach right. And they do have some talent. They do have talent on their team. This is a better roster on both sides of the ball than they had the last time they were looking for a coach, and they had a good defense then with Fangio. But I still say this is a better situation. So now it's but again, that's why I say I guess the negative skeptical way of putting it would be, I want to see how they screw this up, right? That's what everybody's thinking. Everyone who's been watching the Bears for any amount of time is, how are they going to screw this up? And they've earned that. I mean, I hate to say that. I mean, because they're, I like the people at the Bears and stuff like that. I want them to succeed, but their record is their record, and their history is their history, and it's a history of not only losing but dysfunction that's preventing them from winning. And so that's why we're here talking like we are, or I am anyway, because that's what it's been. They've got to, the guy who said he wanted to change what did Pohl say? Change the trend. I can't remember what he said.
Take the North and never give it back.
No, Bill, he said, I want to change the cycle, I think. Break the cycle.
Break the cycle.
He's now part of the cycle. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, he is. He's part of the cycle now. And so now it makes it even that much tougher. And that's after making a great move for the quarterback, and he's still back in that. So again, that's why we're here, and that's why the Bears have. It's the same thing I always say now is I'll believe it when I see it, and I'm not saying they can't get it right, but they've got to show me that they can, and I don't think. No, you can't push back on the skepticism. I guess that's been my big gripe with Bears, that segment of Bears fans, that they have every right to think positive. They want to think positive and live in la la land or whatever after the last 10 years without a playoff win and the last 32 years with 4 playoff wins. That's fine. But don't push back on skepticism. That's been earned. You have no case. I've got 4 wins in 32 years on my side of the argument. What do you got on yours? But again, that just goes to why there's so much skepticism about the Bears. You just hope they can get it right. But hope is, in this division, is kind of a tough thing.
Yeah, they've earned the benefit of they have not earned the benefit of the doubt. They've earned the doubt. That's what they've earned.
That you just said in 4 words what I just took a minute and a half to say. That's why you do this, Adam.
Yeah, but that's why you're the Illinois sports writer of the year. Because I couldn't fill all that copy that you do. It's outstanding. Read him in the Sun Times. Make sure you're following him on Twitter, because that's where the gold always is with Potsy. If you're not fortunate enough to be in the media room with him, where he'll deliver some gold in there too. Potsy, we love you. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Okay, good to talk to you guys. Take care.
Johns, any final thoughts on anything we've been talking about here?
This is going to be a long process. I mean, obviously they can't hire Ben Johnson until the Lions are eliminated from contention here.
Yeah. By the way, real quick on that. So, with the Commanders winning last night, I don't want to rule out anything, but if the Bucs had won, you would have had a Vikings-Lions rematch possibly next week, or Ram. It just seemed like that would have been a tougher game for the Lions. So it feels like the earliest you're even going to be able to talk to Ben Johnson again would be Monday, January 27th. And even then, they might have to wait a day. I have to double check those rules. But that week, the bye week of the Super Bowl, so either the Lions will be out if they lose that conference championship game, and then you can hire them if you want. If they win and they go to the Super Bowl, you can have an in-person interview with them that week. But then everything shuts down Super Bowl week again. You can't hire them, and you're allowed to have 0 contact during Super Bowl week, and you can't talk to them again until the day after the Super Bowl. That's what the rules are there, where things stand with Ben Johnson. But it sure seems like there's at least a 2-week holding pattern from today where they can't even talk to Ben Johnson.
So this week, you're going to get Arthur Smith at some point. Probably sooner than later, because the Steelers have been knocked out. I think Wednesday is the earliest day that you could talk to Brian Flores, Joe Brady, and Todd Monken. So expect those to be knocked out in the Wednesday, Thursday span. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, but they got games to prepare for too. Sometimes you see those interviews happen on Saturday when kind of the hay's in the barn for the game.
The game prep, yeah.
Yeah, or Friday if they're playing Saturday. But let's see. The Saturday games are Texans Chiefs, so there's nobody there, and then Commanders Lions. So, Cliff Kingsbury, if they're going to talk to him,
he's also on Wednesday, starting Wednesday.
Yeah, but he's on a short week, is my point with Cliff Kingsbury.
So probably not.
Yeah. Is there any chance they don't ever talk to Cliff Kingsbury?
I think so.
Yeah.
That happens before, where you request an interview, and by the time the process gets going, and you just can never. Maybe the interest was never really that strong. I'd want to hear from Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, if you're doing this much due diligence, it's okay to talk to Cliff Kingsbury again. Like, make it work.
Yeah.
Maybe learn what worked with Jaden Daniels. David Shaw, he's part of the Broncos front office right now. I believe he could be interviewed. Like, I don't know what his exact title is. Hold on.
Senior personnel
executive
guy.
So he's available for interviews this week. So maybe the college, maybe Matt Campbell, he's not playing anymore. Maybe that interview gets knocked out this week. So it's going to be a while is what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's going to great. That's fantastic. I teased off the top that we had a little bit of show news, so I don't want to completely ignore that. But we're having a little bit of a producer switch here on Hoge and Jahns. And this has actually been going on behind the scenes for a while now. So Kent Garrison, who's been producing this show since we moved over to The Athletic back in 2020, done a phenomenal job. He's been with us, really helped us go to the next level, especially for those of you watching on YouTube. The production and everything that involves, some of the videos you see on social media, all types of things. Kent's been awesome. He's moving on. However,
he'll still be around a little bit.
He's still going to be kind of around. So yeah, we were hoping to kind of do a full goodbye with him today. I think he'll still join us maybe Wednesday or in the near future. He's also a Cowboys guy, so we need to talk to him about Mike McCarthy. So yeah, Kent's meant a lot to this program. We've been so fortunate with the producers that we've had over the years, from Mike Jacobson to Joe Romano to Kent Garrison. And now our new producer, who we'll introduce probably after we say goodbye to Kent, but Katie Langen, who's already been behind the scenes working with us now for at least a month. And she's doing a phenomenal job. She's going to be taking over. So, just a little bit of show news there as we, reference our producers sometimes and bring them on screen sometimes. You'll hear their voices. So we just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. And Kent was unable to join us today. So we'll bring him in maybe on Wednesday, and give him the love he deserves, because he's been a huge part of this over the last 5 years.
Yeah, like you said, for those watching on YouTube, wouldn't be watching on YouTube if it wasn't for Kent.
100%. Yeah, because we used to be audio only until he insisted, and that was the correct call. So
yes, oh yes.
So thank you, and again, everybody who watches on YouTube, please go hit subscribe on the podcast version too, and vice versa. If you've been one of our OGs listening to the podcast, for 10 years, and you've never checked out the YouTube, just jump on there and hit subscribe for us over there too. Hit the like button; it just helps grow the show. Get it in people's algorithms and things like that. So we appreciate all the love and support, and trust us, this thing's going to still keep going this way. But we appreciate everything Kent has given to this program over the last 5 years. That's half of our existence, Johns. 5 of the 10 seasons we've done. It's huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time is flying by. Unlike this coaching search.
It's true. I do feel good. I'm going to Nashville over the weekend, though, so I feel pretty confident I'm not going to miss too much.
Usually how this works is if you go on a trip, if you're doing something with your family, that's when the news breaks. But
yeah,
I'm pretty confident that you will enjoy all the country music and barbecue that you want this weekend, Adam.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Thank you. Well, it's really my wife that deserves it, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. And you keep bracing for the week after the Super Bowl. That's probably when we're really gonna have a problem.
Yeah. Kevin Fishbane's on vacation then too, so I'm
So
ready.
So am I. So you are covering the Ben Johnson press conference.
A lot of Adam Jahns coming your way.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. All right, we're out of here. I think we'll be back Wednesday before I get out of town. So we'll have another episode Wednesday. Recapping everything that happens over the next few days. Should be interesting. And yeah, we'll talk to you then.
See ya.